ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J team. Step back, we gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. Thank you for making this show part of your daily routine, your first listen every day. Locked On Celtics, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts. Available on YouTube, so make sure you're watching the show there. I'm John Karalis. I cover the team for Boston Sports Journal. I've written a book called Boston Celtics All-Time All-Stars. You can buy that anywhere books are sold. Go to my website, johnkaralis.com, for a signed copy for $30. Makes a great gift. Today, I'm bringing in Keith Smith once again. You know him from Celtics blog and Sport Track, and he joins every once in a while to add his perspective on the Celtics. So let's just dive into the conversation on what we've seen from the Celtics so far. All right, Keith, good to have you back. First of all, welcome back. Merry Christmas. How's everything going?
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you and yours as well. Yeah, everything's going good. It was nice to see the Celtics have a little bit of fun last night. I think it was a big takeaway.
Yeah, that's much needed dose of fun. Thank you, Joe Johnson. Aside from Joe Johnson, I feel like the Celtics are basically the exact same spot that they were last time we talked. They are struggling to stay above 500. No real win streak to speak of. No, nothing. But I guess let's I think maybe add a dose of reality here, right? Like December was always going to be rough, and we have to, I think, just accept that, you know, we can't overreact to things that we knew going in were going to be tough. And we knew going in that, like, if they just get through this, just get through it right around 500, we'll be fine. I think in the midst of it, we want to go crazy, but I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Like, I feel like just kind of get through it. It's actually not as bad as it might look, all things considered. And get into January and see if you can put a streak together in January.
Yeah, that's kind of it exactly. I think this team we've been saying for months now, like it was going to be tough. The schedule was very road heavy early on. And then December just looked like a murderer's row. And even some of the games that looked easy, like the Cleveland game last night, I know they won, but that's all of a sudden a good team. And that didn't even look like that little island there where you could kind of get a rest in there. And now COVID has messed everything up, and who knows who will have who available and who's going to play and what that'll look like. But yeah, the hope was get to the end of December, get the team a little healthier, start really taking off then and with a lighter schedule and see what it looks like in the second half. But you hit the nail on the head when you're in it. It's a little harder to get sorted and figure out and feel great about. And I think the other challenge comes is some of the losses were pretty bad, especially towards the end of the road trip when they just didn't look good. And those ones are always a little bit harder to get beyond.
And that is the tough thing, because in the grand scheme of things, this pulled out view, you say, all right, look, December is what it is and all of that stuff. But in the midst of it, there is that Sixers game where you're like, you were up 7 with 4 minutes to go. That's a game you should close out. There are games in there where you should close them out. However, you know, if you had Al Horford, then maybe that game would have gone differently, you know, and you're relying on 40 minutes of NSK Friedman, who, by the way, is going into COVID protocols himself. So there's another one. But 40 minutes of him, and you're still up 7 with 4 minutes to go. And you don't have one of your key floor spacers in Grant Williams. Like all of the guys that have helped weren't there. And you didn't have Rob, you know, as you know, you played that Enes Kanter that much because you have Bruno Fernando backing him up. And maybe 5 minutes of Bruno Fernando might have done a decent job, but who knows? So I think proper perspective, and I was saying this the other day, and people don't like to hear this. People want you to be like, angry. And I can't bring myself to be that angry when half the team is out and your most used lineup is is the second has the second least minutes playing together, and your mostly used lineup didn't even include Jaylen Brown. Like
Yeah.
that's how can you actually judge a team that's in the midst of that?
I'm with you. I've been trying to say that all along, and I get it when people are like, but yet, as you kind of said, you should have won the Philly game. Like, so I fully understand. Like, I get where the frustration comes in, but trying to take a bigger picture look, this team has not been what I think anybody expected. Now, you can say that about probably 20 teams in the league this year with just various absences and the like. And I also had somebody point out to me, and they thankfully did it nicely over social media, unlike so many others, but was are we in year like 10 of this team being down some major player and saying just when they get that guy back, like they'll finally take off? And there's some truth to that too. It feels like it's been that way every year. But yeah, I all along, when we all do it, it's harder to do in the NBA than it is in, say, the NFL or anything because of the more games and the length of the schedule. But you sit down and kind of map it out, and I felt like, all right, this team maybe a little bit above 500 as we hit the holidays, and then we'll see. They should really take off in the second half. And I felt like there was going to be a growing pains in the beginning, just adjusting to Ime Udoka, factoring in. They've got a couple new rotation players. I know Al Horford was here before, but still he's new. He hasn't been here in a couple seasons. So it was going to take a little while. And I think that's what makes some of those losses, those overtime losses, some of the ones where they probably should have closed the game out, those sting a little bit more because you flip 2 or 3 of those, and all of a sudden you're sitting there and you're like, man, we're in second in the East and we're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I'm still kind of, I don't want to say optimistic, but there's room here for these guys to grow, and so I don't know, man. I can't. I don't know what it is, man. I can't bring myself to have that. Like everybody's losing their minds. Like I can't bring myself to do it. But I do think that this stretch here, this December stretch, is giving Ime Udoka a little dose of some unintended data points. No, you don't have half your regulars. You're forced to play some of these guys, and it's pretty clear that Pritchard with some confidence in playing time is good. Rob, I was saying this in the last segment of last night's podcast. Rob by himself at the top of the key with cutters can pick a defense apart. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there are things that are evident, and Ime has his idea of this is how I want things to work. And I think sometimes we get married to our own ideas, right? I had a thought, this is how I want it to go. It's not going exactly like I thought it would, but I know if we just do this, let me just do it myself. I'll show you how it goes. Like that whole mentality. And you're so set in making that work that maybe possibly he's losing sight of, okay, what if I adjust? What if I do this? What if I do that? What do you think of that versus you got to play Dennis Schroder to keep his trade value up, and part of why you got Dennis Schroder is to get his trade value and move him by the deadline. Like, what's the balance there, do you think?
Yeah, I think one of the things you hit on was the being married to your kind of what you came in with. And I think there is a sense of everybody screams and yells that double bigs doesn't work, and Horford and Williams isn't a good lineup together, even though the numbers generally tell us that's not true, and they've been generally pretty good together. But I think it's, if you're Ime Udoka, it's, well, I don't want to move away from it because I haven't seen those two guys with Jaylen Brown very much. So what does that look like when I have my ideal lineup out there? I think hopefully he started to learn the lesson that the Schroder Smart pairing, not probably great as a starting group, especially if Rob's going to be your only big, because your spacing is just junk. Then you just, as you said, Rob can't pick out cutters because there's nobody cutting because there's no room to cut because you've got 4 guys all packed in and around the key. So I think that becomes really kind of tricky. So I think we saw him move off of that. Not that Romeo Langford is this incredible floor spacer, but he's just different. And the fact that he'll move off the ball, in my opinion, he's the best cutter on the team. I don't think it's particularly close. I think he's the one guy that you can see will read and look and dive to the rim and all sorts of other stuff that he does. I think that's big. I think out of necessity, it's been a rediscovery of Peyton Pritchard. I brought this up in the somewhere else, and they didn't get it. But you're close to my age. Do you remember the movie from the '80s, One on One? Do you remember that basketball movie?
One.
It was this kid who was like a small town high school star, went off to like a big, I think it was supposed to be like UCLA type of school, and he just wasn't very good, and it turned into this big disaster. It's an absolutely terrible movie. But what happens at the end of this, and I'm gonna spoil it because it's 40 years old probably at this point. The kid is losing his scholarship. So he goes out and just plays like he did in high school, and he makes all these crazy plays, and everybody falls in love with him, and they win this huge game. And I think the coach might get fired or something. It goes all crazy. Why I'm bringing this up is when Peyton Pritchard got on the floor in Portland a couple weeks back, I felt like Peyton Pritchard basically said, I'm just going to play. I'm just going to do me. And if I piss a bunch of people off because I'm taking a bunch of 3-pointers in a blowout, too bad. I'm doing my thing. And I think that relaunched him into feeling good and feeling confident. And I think that got him seeing some shots go down, got him back to being kind of that pesky, I'm going to get into guys on defense. I'm going to really challenge ball handlers. I'm going to do all the things he did as a rookie versus, all right, I got to play alongside this other small guard, and I'm going to play off guys, and then I'm going to get picked on because of my size and all these other things. I think Aaron Nesmith last night, it was awesome to see. There was a play in the first half, came off a screen, took a couple dribbles, and pulled up and hit a jump shot.
Yep.
That's not something we generally see him do very often. Thought last night was Romeo Langford's best all-around game that he's played all year. I thought he was really good offensively, and I thought his defense was incredible, especially guarding a lot of guys who were anywhere from 6 to 8 inches taller than he is. I thought he was really good. So I think out of necessity, we've seen it rediscovered.
Back for more with Keith in just a minute. First, I got to tell you about TrueBill. You know why those free trials are free and they renew without your consent? Because businesses are scamming you. They want your money, and TrueBill helps you identify and stop paying for those subscriptions, the ones you don't want, the ones you don't need, the ones you've just forgotten about. It happens to all of us. And on average, people save $720 a year with TrueBill. Companies make these things hard to cancel on purpose. TrueBill makes it very simple. Link your accounts and TrueBill cancels them with one tap. TrueBill Concierge is there when you need them so they can cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. If I'd had this the first time around, I wouldn't have been hit with hundreds of dollars in subscription fees that I had to go back and get myself. TrueBill will do it for you. They have over 2 million users. They've helped them save over $100 million. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. That's TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now. Could save you thousands a year. TrueBill.com/LockedOnNBA. We're also brought to you by Built Bar, my favorite protein bar, the best protein bar on the market. You can go and grab yourself a Built Bar right now at Built.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 every time you use it. Every single time. Buy one box at a time if you want. 15% off with the promo code LOCKED15. Keep going back. These would have made great stocking stuffers if you had gotten them. They make a fun little gift, fun to hand out to the kids, your nieces, your nephews, whomever. They're delicious. They're healthy. Low in calories, low sugar, low net carbs, low fat, high in protein, tons of flavors. They're constantly adding new flavors. It's kind of incredible, all the different stuff that they've grown into. They're the official protein bar of NASCAR and the U.S. track and field team. So check them out. Built Bar gives you that added boost when you need one, when you're in a pinch and you haven't been able to grab anything to eat. You have a Built Bar in your bag. Pull it out. Boom. It's going to hold you over for a little while. It's great for that. After the gym, it's great to get protein into your body without blowing out all the cardio that you've done. Go to Built.com right now. Use that promo code LOCK15. 15% off every time you use it at Built.com.
Now, you mentioned Schroder. Yeah, I've been I'm not a big fan of Dennis Schroder's game. I openly admit that. I don't like guys who pound the ball into the ground a million times and then don't do anything until there's 2 or 3 seconds left on the shot clock. That's just, I don't like that kind of basketball. The rolling the ball up thing drives me beyond insane. I hate it so much. But Dennis Schroder is probably the best player on this roster as far as breaking down a defense and getting by a guy off the bounce. Tatum and Brown don't do it consistently because their handles aren't good enough. But Schroder does it with regularity, generally creates something pretty good. But the reality is this guy was always a one-year option for the Celtics. And I think the hope was he's a one-year option who can lift us if everything breaks right into the Eastern Conference Finals. Maybe he's still that guy. Maybe everything happens there, but I think you have to start looking at it as what changes if we give all those minutes to Peyton Pritchard and we don't play Smart off the ball as often. We really kind of split 48 minutes as the primary ball handler between Smart and Pritchard, and that's where we go. Is this team a lot better? Probably not. Are they a lot worse? Also, probably not. They're probably about the same. But at least then you've got a guy who may be a part of the future developing. And the last thing I'll say with Pritchard, especially, is the fact that you got to guard this guy from 35 feet and in is huge. Because you see, he just opens up a lot of stuff out there that no one else on the roster opens up the floor the way he does, and that's massive. I think Ime has started to stumble into some stuff that I think we may see continue here moving forward that we may not have if necessity hadn't forced his hand.
I choose. I okay. First of all, in life generally, I try to be positive. I'm realistic about things, but I don't like the pessimistic view of things. So I tend to skew, my opinions tend to skew towards possibility and potential, and you know, so anyway, I see this sudden COVID mess that the NBA is going through as a potential opportunity. There's always opportunity in the bad things that happen somewhere. There's always a silver lining, almost but most of the time. You have this that's going on with Pritchard. Nesmith, I want to turn Nesmith down, like I was saying yesterday in the podcast. I want to turn the volume down from like 12, and the dial only goes to 10. So I want to take it from 12 back down to like 9.5 for him. He does so many things that are like great in theory, but he is flying all over the place. I just want to just take it back a little bit, which is fine. Which is fine. I'd rather have that than a guy where you're trying to pull things out of. It's easier to dial things back. So that said, we have these opportunities here, and you're seeing Romeo Langford getting this opportunity and staying basically healthy, minus like a little ankle sprain, shit that happens to everybody everywhere. Every basketball player happens. And side note, the next time he like turns an ankle, I don't want people to go, "Oh my God,
Yeah,
he can't stay healthy." Like
yeah.
basketball players are going to sprain ankles. All right, just leave it alone.
Well, the last one was the worst one because he got elbowed in the head.
Yeah,
like that's not. He didn't do anything. That's not being fragile. He got elbowed in the head.
Right.
It's like
Somebody
not,
jumped
yeah.
and did a Macho Man elbow drop on top of his skull, and he missed a couple of games. Like that stuff is going to happen in basketball. And I'll go back to this. The last injury, and knock on wood, that I'm not jinxing him. He hasn't suffered an injury since that wrist. He didn't suffer an injury last season. He's had like minor tweaks this season. So hopefully the worst of the luck is behind him, and we're seeing what he can do with this opportunity. He has value. And either it's value on the team or value in a trade market or whatever. The second thing that there's this silver lining here is Joe Johnson. I compared him to Mary Poppins, coming floating in with his umbrella, landing in front of the doorstep, and I am here to care for your children. And taking care of them for a short amount of time, kind of like, oh, I'm going to make this tweak, this tweak, and maybe he'll sing a song in the locker room and then float on out and goodbye. And that's it. I think the Joe Johnson thing is actually a big deal. And I don't know. I'd like to hear your perspective. You can feel free to tell me to calm down. But here's my argument. That, and I say this coming as like a former basketball player that wishes every day that I had one more run, you know, to be Joe Johnson. And he obviously keeps himself in shape. He obviously has been ready and waiting for this moment and said the hopes were fading that it would come. Here he is on a 10-day contract, maybe his last 10 days in the NBA. It's almost like I know now I've got 10 days left, or maybe a 20 or whatever. I'm really going to enjoy this moment. Mm-hmm. And you have a bunch of guys in this locker room who are young. They feel invincible. They feel like, this game doesn't matter. This is okay. You know, I feel like their brains have been poisoned by Kyrie and Tristan Thompson talking about the regular season doesn't matter. And now here comes a bit of an antidote in Joe Johnson, who I think would have the perspective of, you know what? This stuff goes fast. I was in this building 20 years ago under Rick Pitino. Now I'm back, and that 20 years happened in a blink. So you guys might think you've got the whole world in front of you. Let me tell you something. One day you're going to wake up and basketball is going to be taken away from you, and you're going to be like, oh, damn, I wish I had appreciated that a little bit more. And maybe that dose of reality can kind of counteract the Tristan Thompson regular season is horseshit quote, and he can give these guys a dose of perspective to be like, you know what? Come out every day and give it everything you have. So when you're done, whenever the game is taken away from you, you don't have the regrets of, geez, I wish I had tried harder. I wish I had focused more, you know, in that fourth season, that fifth season.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that part of it. I think his contributions for however long they last, and I'm open to it being more than just 10 days or even 20 days if there's a second hardship needed. Because I think there is a potential where the reality is on NBA teams, if you're counting on anything on the floor from your 15th to 17th man, counting in the two-way players, you're probably not a very good team. That's just reality is that. So if they look at it and say, man, he's been a great influence on our young guys, and I include Tatum and Brown in that. They're young guys. If it is he's huge here for us in the locker room, I wouldn't be surprised if he sticks. If they say, you know what, we're going to keep him. We'll move on. It'd probably be Jabari Parker. Just contractually, it's the one that makes the most sense. Mm-hmm. But I think where my point was, and I think this got lost a little bit on Twitter, which huge surprise and shock, right? That, nuance got lost on there.
Misinterpreted on Twitter? The hell you say?
Right? Was I had people saying like, man, this is awesome. This guy's going to come in and do this and this and this. And I was like, he's 40, hasn't played in the league in like 4 years. Like, don't do that. Don't put those expectations on he's going to be great, because when you do that, the only one you're going to do is let yourself down with this. Like you don't want to be there in that world of, man, I thought he was going to come in and score 10 points a game and play 20 minutes a night and hit all these shots and all this stuff. Cause that's just crazy. I mean, and I'm with you. I tend to be positive and optimistic, probably more than I should be, especially when it comes to basketball in general. But if you could take it as this guy's going to be a good influence on the younger players and it's just going to be fun, 100%. Let's have fun with it. Last night was fun. This team needed to have some fun. They needed to get wins, but they needed to have fun too in those wins. I think it was that this is big. And that thing, when you get a win like that and everybody's feeling good and everybody's having some laughs, that can carry for, a few days and see where it goes. But my thing with Joe Johnson is, if what we get is 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever it is, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown telling us stories about, when we had Joe Johnson for that couple weeks, months, half a season, it was so big because I learned this from him, or I learned that from him, and I learned this. Then it was all worth it, without a doubt, no questions at all. This was never going to be bad. It was never going to be something where what a ridiculous signing this was and all this. And I get it with the people who are like, why aren't they taking a younger guy? Well, the young guys on the team already don't play enough. Like, you want another one? And I think Ime Udoka was very honest when he said, we don't need any more projects. And what I was told talking to people was they liked the idea of Joe Johnson and CJ Miles because they get it. They get what
Right.
this is. This is not a come in, fly all over the place, bang into guys in practice, do all this stuff because you're trying to earn your spot in the league. They get it. The Celtics don't need that right now. Orlando, where I live, they need that. They're in the diamond mining process. They should be looking for guys who could pop and be a part of the roster and all those things. But yeah, I think the Joe Johnson, addition is it's one of those that I think could pay off huge. And again, wouldn't shock me if it lasts beyond, into next week. If they really say, wow, we've really felt good about having this guy here. Players really like having him along. Because again, 15th guy on the roster probably doesn't really matter. I mean, look at the Miami Heat. They've had Udonis Haslem for a decade almost now,
Right.
beyond his usefulness as a basketball player because of what he means in the locker room. And people say, well, they should hire him as a coach. We all got excited about Evan Turner, but it's just different. You played. It's different. The coaches aren't the ones going out to the dinners with the players in the locker room before and after the game,
Right.
hanging out. They're not the ones doing the shooting contests where it's not as much about the shooting contests as it is, hey, let's talk about it. You up a little late last night, you eating right, you doing these things. They're not the ones necessarily having those conversations. It just goes further when it's a player. And then when the famous players only meetings happen, coaches aren't in them. Guy like Haslam, a guy like Joe Johnson, their word carries so far because they've been there, done that, especially with these guys who are still looking for and trying to figure out and find their place in the league.
Back for more with Keith in just a minute here to wrap up the show. First, BetOnline has you covered this holiday season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. Football is starting to wrap up. In college, it's bowl season. In the pros, it's the playoffs coming up. And BetOnline is your number one spot for all the sports action. Head on over to BetOnline on the web, on your mobile device. Sign up and get a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with the promo code Locked On. Use that promo code to get 50% extra on whatever your first deposit is. From basketball to football, all your favorite sports, all your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of the amazing offers this season available at BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline is where the game starts. Please gamble responsibly. I always compare it to the person at just work, wherever people you're listening, wherever you work, a person that you go out for beers with, somebody that you consider a friend at work, and that person gets a promotion to management.
Yep.
And all of a sudden things change just the smidge. And, that person, like, all of a sudden that person has to approve your vacation time. And you go, hey, I forgot to put something in. And can you just give me this week off? And they'd be like, sorry, I already gave this other person this week off. And you'd be like, oh, come on. And they say, like, no, you can't. And like, now you're like, oh, damn, this person's like legit management. And it's not the same. We can't go out for beers the same way anymore because it seems inappropriate now. And like that dynamic is the exact same thing that happens when a coach, when a player turns into a coach, because now, like you said, that player, Haslam, would go into the coaches' meetings, and that player, that guy's not in the locker room and doesn't hear that stuff and can't pull a guy aside who he sees, in the corner of the locker room that might be like down or always looking at his phone. He never used to look at his phone before. Like, hey, I noticed you're looking at your phone a lot, man. What's going on? Is everything okay? Whatever. Like that type of mentorship is important. And yeah, so I can see Joe Johnson kind of morphing into that for sure. And I don't know that Jabari Parker isn't doing that.
Sure.
But I can see that need for an extra voice like that when, in this locker room. Jaylen Brown said it after the game, and I'm glad he was able to clarify a little bit, so it didn't sound like the first time he answered that question, it sounded like he was almost like calling out his team, saying like, oh, we need that maturity. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And he's like, no, I mean, like, we just need, like, any extra voice that we have is a good one. And I'm like, okay, that I feel like bringing Joe Johnson in for that will be helpful. I thought it was interesting that Schroder was one of the guys that he had the one-on-one conversations with earlier, considering that Schroder, was trying to figure himself out and is bouncing around the league. So let's shift into the Schroder talk. And since we always end up talking about trades and stuff. The Celtics are potentially, I think everybody's expecting them to at least listen. I don't know, maybe even shop Schroder. I think they should. Uh, just from your kind of like keeping a tabs on the league, I don't know if there's any. I feel like honestly, like with COVID and all these emergency contracts and stuff, all this other stuff kind of went by the wayside. Everybody's like, "Hey, hold on. Yes, we'll talk about Dennis Schroder. I got half my team in protocols. Let me get back to you after I raid the G League showcase." But as we get a sense of the league, everybody wants to gauge how likely is it that the Celtics can move Schroder? What are they going to get? Is it going to be a player? Is it going to be a second or 2 seconds or something like that? Do you have any added sense on what that market might be?
No, it's difficult right now because I talked with a couple different front office people this week, and they were like, "Man, like the G League Showcase was supposed to be all of us together, kind of sitting down, starting the trade process, really, because we're all there together. It's just easier when you're in person. It's just
Yeah.
it's just quicker than text or phone calls or anything else. And one of the things that they said is it wasn't none of that happened. It was all, man, we got to get this guy here who's out this week. Was it an actual positive? Is it contact tracing? Is it 10 days? Is he vaccinated? Is he not? It was just such a mess. And these guys were, all right, hey, we got this guy who wants to come to us. And I had one team tell me we thought we had a guy lined up to come in on a hardship, and then we found out he's actually on a plane to another city entirely because it was a better opportunity for him. And it's just the way it was working. So none of that's really happened. So to your point of trade talk, trade window opened, we went right into this COVID mess, and everything now is kind of slowed down, probably till reality is another week or so after the holidays. But when it comes to Schroder, 100% Celtics are listening. I don't want to say they're shopping him because I don't think they are, but I think they're open to, hey, you need a point guard? We got a point guard, very easily movable contract. Anybody in the league can trade for Dennis Schroder because his contract number is so low. Because the Celtics went into this with, this is a 1-year relationship. And this is a very much a marriage of convenience. We need a point guard. You need a home. We have $6 million. Let's go. And there they did. They went off and they did it. The reality is the max they can pay him next year, barring major roster changes, is just over $7 million. That's probably not enough. And I know people are saying, well, that's what he thought last year too. Well, but it is a different year and different things will emerge, and some team will need a point guard, much like the Celtics did. And I think, again, I said it earlier, is you got to start weighing how different are we without him as far as the record goes. Are we going to win more, win less? What's that going to look like? So I think what happens ultimately with Dennis Schroder is he's a decent trade piece on his own. You're not getting a major return. You're not getting a star player back. Maybe you get a young player that needs a change of scenery back in a trade. Maybe if a team gets super desperate and it's trade deadline day, you get a top 20 protected first round pick because that team just has to have a point guard or their season's going to go off the rails. Maybe you get 2 second-round picks, something like that. Or the other thing is $6 million, put that with Wancho's $7 million, throw in, guys, now the name's slipping all right, so those two, there's 13. Josh Richardson has played pretty good. What if you throw in his 11 million? Now all of a sudden you're up over $20 million in matching salary, and that gets you in the market for anybody who becomes available. And I think that's what the Celtics are weighing. I don't think there's anything. We all get super fired up. Trade window's open. It's December 15th. Yay. There's been like one in the last 15 years that's happened that day. The reality is, I think all along it's been, we can play this all the way out until 2:50 on February 10th, 10 minutes to go on the deadline. And then we can make our move and see what materializes then, because there's just no need right now to have to make those moves. That said, I think Brad is open and willing. We've seen he's already made a whole bunch of moves. Just in a very, it sounds weird to say it, but in 6 months leading this team, he's made a huge trade with the Kemba for Horford trade. He made the Richardson trade. He's made other moves. He's done a lot of stuff in a very, short period of time. And I think that's what we see with, I think he also, maybe more than Danny Ainge, understands I got to support my coach. I got to give him the pieces he needs to
Right.
make this happen because otherwise it's going to be the same thing I had where we're pretty good, but we're not quite good enough. And I think he comes with a slightly different perspective of if there's a deal to be made, and yeah, maybe it leaves us a little bit weaker 3 years from now. All right, I'm doing it because I want to win right now. I want to have my coach. I don't think he's going to make win now trades as far as, I'm trading these three guys and all the draft picks and everything under the sun. That's not going to happen. But I think he'll be a little bit more aggressive and open to moves that are not necessarily doing something that's a marginal upgrade now, but I also added this pick and I added this and I added this and I added this because that keeps us, really stocked for the next 4 years. I think it might be this helps us right now. We'll deal with 2 years from now, 2 years from now.
Such an interesting dynamic going on here. I like the idea of guys earning their playing time. I also understand the idea of you've got to maximize Schroeder's trade value. So you can't just go flat out bench him. The past few games have been bad for him, and I think you might be able to excuse it away as the non-COVID illness, whatever it is. I've been saying, if he's sick, sit him down.
Mhm.
But I I would anticipate what you said as far as, is there a way to package these guys at least, 2 or 3, even freedom could be,
Sure.
freedom for sale. I can't help like these like puns.
Yeah,
Like
it's too easy.
too easy. I can't. But you can package these guys and there's gonna be an injury or a pivot or something where somebody becomes available and you go, oh,
Mhm.
okay. And maybe the pieces that you have will be enough. I feel like Brad is gonna have a a team somewhere where he's like, okay, I can give you Schroeder for this. I'm working on something else. Don't make another move without, if you're going to go with another point guard, let me know because I'll pull the trigger. Like if your top choice is Schroeder, I get it. And I'll let you know if I'm going a different direction. I've got this. If that doesn't work out, Schroeder's yours. And that kind of like juggling a little bit. If that one thing doesn't pan out, I think you do have to get rid of Schroeder. I think if Schroeder ends the season on this team, then I don't think it's worth. I think it's a mistake. Um,
The only counter I'll have to that is let's say they come into the new year and they start ripping off wins left and right and they're playing great and you get to the trade deadline and it's like, man, we are rolling. We feel like we're right there because this season clearly it's a weird season. I don't think anybody should feel great about, saying, well, come on, it's the Nets or the Bucks are coming out because who knows what the Nets and Bucks will even be by the
right,
time we get to
right,
May and June. So I think if you're feeling like, man, we're playing really well, because the reality is, I think we're lost because they're 500. They're like 3 games out of home court advantage. Like that's crazy.
sure,
So I think that's the only time I would say, all right, I get it. Now, if you're only doing that on a hope and a prayer, that's not good enough. No, move them because whatever minor asset you get back is better than losing them for nothing this offseason. You also have the benefit of then you get a couple months of Peyton Pritchard. This backup job is yours. Boy, let's see what you got, kid, because
yeah,
we're gonna start to really figure this out the rest of the way. And my point has been, I wrote this for Celtics blog. I've said this before: is how much changes? How different do you really look record wise if you run with Peyton Pritchard over Dennis Schroeder? I don't think it's all that different. I think it's probably going to look pretty similar to what it is. I will also say the one thing I'll say with Schroeder too is I think last night might have sparked the beginning of the end of if one of the starters is out, he's automatically slides up.
oh yeah,
I
I hope so.
I think Ime was like, yeah, we're done with this. And it worked out pretty good. So I still think Horford starts when he gets back. I don't think he's going to put him on the bench. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think you're going to see Williams, Horford, Brown, Tatum, and Smart. But I think if one of those guys is out, which we know Al's going to be out here and there the rest of the
Mhm.
way, and probably Rob too, just being realistic with his injury history, I don't think it's automatic anymore that Schroeder gets the start. And I think he might have started to figure out a little bit of, all right, if I can really get Schroeder attacking downhill and play Pritchard solely as this floor spacer with a couple other athletes out there, this might start to work a little. Maybe we see him. He's been very reluctant to expand the rotation beyond nine. And it's really only eight because that ninth guy only gets about a couple minutes each half. I think we might see him say, all right, I got to go to 10. I got to get Grant Williams has earned his role. I got to get Langford, Neesmith minutes. I got to play them because of those three bigs. I can play, slide Tatum up. I can do some different stuff. And then if we really need another big in the rotation, I've got freedom that I can throw in. I think again, just to go back to it, I think he's really discovered some stuff here in the last couple weeks out of necessity of, all right, these guys need to play because they just have to. At some point, you got to figure out what you got, and it's there, and of course you got Richardson in there. But yeah, I think this roster is more built than it has been at any point over the past few years to take two, three guys, do a two or three for one trade to go get somebody who can actually come in and make a difference on this team and be pretty good and move things forward in a way we haven't seen them do in the last couple of years. And you said it too. Someone's going to become available that we're not expecting.
Yeah. There's so much. There's so much that's still in flux, and I mean, I guess that's good for me. That's good for us because there's a lot. There's going to be a lot to talk about. Um, the I'm happy that they're going to get away. It seems from starting Schroeder and Smart together. I think that's better for everybody. That's just better for everybody, and hopefully that continues. So
Mhm.
we'll I don't know. We'll just continue to watch it. I guess that's our jobs, right? That's our jobs
Yep,
to watch
that's
this
it.
stuff. The trade
I
deadline's
think
a big
on
thing.
that point too, I am trying to. We talked about this before. Like we both tend to be more positive because we live possibilities. I am. I read this term the other day, and I think it describes me. I'm an optirealist, which means I'm
Yeah.
optimistic, but I'm also realistic. And I think that really does just describe me. I'm trying and failing to not fight with people on Twitter all the time that are just going to be mad all the time. But there's
Yeah.
a little bit to me of like last night people are being nitpicky. It's like just enjoy it. It was fun. Like this team hasn't been fun so many times this year, and you've had reason to actually be mad. Like just enjoy this one. This one was a fun one. We get it because I don't know. I mean, I pulled a ton of clips for Celtics blog in my article today, and I wrote a whole bunch of stuff and all these things because for me it was. I don't know when the next time I'm going to be able to pull a whole bunch of fun clips and show all this fun stuff because it hasn't happened regularly. So I'm going to take the opportunity. And the reality is, you know what? I've kind of right now they're a 500 team. Doesn't mean they're going to always be a 500 team. Maybe they'll get better. But for right now, I'm going to just I'm not going to let the wins get me overly fired up and oh my god, here it comes banner 18. And I'm also not every loss means blow this thing up and go into the lottery. It's
Yeah.
it's just they're there, they're playing, and we're going to keep learning and figuring it out. And there are signs if you want to look for them that it's getting better. You may starting to figure some stuff out rotation wise, lineup wise. I think that's going to continue. And for that reason, I think again, after the first of the year, come back and yell at me and tell me I was an idiot and I'm wrong if you want. If they're still, bad and the play-in team by the end of the season. But I really do. I think a better second half is coming for this team.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope. I mean, I do think the January schedule is. I mean, we looked at that December schedule and we're like, oh no. January is Orlando, like Orlando, the Spurs, the Knicks twice, Indy twice, Philly, Chicago, Pelicans, Charlotte, Portland, Washington, Sacramento, Atlanta, New Orleans, Miami. A lot of winnable games in there. A lot of winnable games. Theoretically, hopefully, there is everyone's coming out of protocol soon. Theoretically, hopefully, full squad, a little more continuity. We get to see maybe they get fat on some of this week schedule, and you go into the All-Star break with a decent record. We'll see. That's optimism for you. That's optimism for you. And I'm optimistically gonna say we'll see you again next time. We'll have you back next time when the Celtics are one game above 500 or something.
I love it.
All right, thanks to Keith. Really appreciate him coming on every once in a while, add some great perspective. Not doing a show after the Christmas Day game unless something completely crazy goes on, but I'm going to take Christmas off. So I'll be back on Monday. It's a Monday through Friday show. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed. If you're new, if you're one of Keith's followers and you say, oh, this is pretty good, great. Subscribe to the show. Hopefully you make it your first listen every day. Watch the show on YouTube, subscribe there, and get notified when new videos drop. And if you are a subscriber, hey, when you get together for the holidays here with your family, with your friends, tell them that they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network.